Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good morning, students. My name is Shalini Sharma. I am working child rights professional with an experience of 5.5 years as chairperson Child Welfare Committee and more than 1.5 years in my present role as member Juvenile Justice Board. Today, I am here to take a course on Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children Act 2015. And our module for the day is non-institutional care. Today, we will try to understand the modes of non-institutional services as elaborated in Juvenile Justice Act 2015. The number one service is sponsorship. The second service is foster care. The third service is aftercare. And the fourth one is adoption. I welcome all of you to today's class. In our previous modules so far, we have studied the growth of Juvenile Justice Act in India before it attained its present form. We also studied about Child Welfare Committee, a statutory body to deal with children in need of care and protection. We also studied about Juvenile Justice Board, a statutory body to deal with the cases of child in conflict with the law. We also studied about different kind of child care institutions, their classifications and mandatory services provided in those institutions. So, to start with today's class on non-institutional care, let us understand the brief history or background for this. Every nation views its children as one of its most valuable resources. The growth of children is just as vital as the growth of material resources, and raising children is the finest way to grow the nation's human resource. The world's greatest child population resides in India. India is making enormous efforts to promote the growth and well-being of our children. In many areas, there has been a significant improvement in protecting the children's rights, but there is still a lot to be done. The Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children Act 2015 is a statement of our nation's commitment and resolve to offer all our children their basic rights. In India, many children are still at risk of abandonment, exploitation, neglect and destitution because of poor socio-economic conditions of their families and parents. Poor families often place their children into institutional care as a poverty coping mechanism. In many other cases, children run away from their family because of abusive and exploitative conditions at their homes, and in many cases these children do not want to return back. Hence, they are placed in institutions. Now, as a result, large number of children are forced to spend their lives in these institutions. It is an accepted fact that institutionalization of children should be the last resort, and family-based non-institutional care is a better option. The Juvenile Justice Act realizes the importance of reintegrating the children back into their families. To that end, individual cases of children in these institutions are also periodically reviewed and necessary support and supervised financial assistance is provided for the integration of these children into the family through non-institutional support. Juvenile justice system in India and non-institutional care. We all know that Juvenile Justice Act 2015 is based on the provisions of the Constitution of India, CRC, and other key United Nations convention pertaining to the child. The Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act 2050 has integrated provisions for non-institutional care or alternative care in different sections of the legislation, including in its general principles. Chapter 2 of the Act outlines the general principles to be followed in administration of Act. Some of them, especially relevant for the non-institutional care, are as: number 1, principle of family responsibility. The primary responsibility of care, nurture and protection of the child shall be that of the biological family or adoptive foster parents, as the case may be. Now, see what this principle says. This principle says it is the primary duty of every family, be it biological, be it adoptive or be it foster, to look after the welfare and needs of the child. Positive measure. Now, the principle says all resources are to be mobilized, including those of family and community, for promoting the well-being, facilitating development of the identity and providing an inclusive and enabling environment to reduce the vulnerabilities of children and the need for intervention. Now, the principle of positive measure says that the government, the community shall mobilize all their resources to secure the best interest, the well-being of the child. Now, let us see the third principle, principle of institutionalization as a measure of last resort. This principle says a child shall be placed in institution only as a last resort, and that too after making a reasonable inquiry. And the other provisions of the Juvenile Justice Act which speaks for the non-institutional care are: principle of the best interest of the child and a child-friendly approach while working with the children when they come into the purview of the juvenile justice system. Now, children, let us see what the term best interest of the child means. It means that the basis for any decision taken regarding the child to ensure fulfillment of his basic rights and needs, identity, social well-being and physical, emotion and intellectual development. So, students, it is a settled fact that the best interest of the child and the best development of any child is possible in the family care only. Now, let us see what the term child friendly means. It means any behavior, conduct, practice, process, attitude, environment or treatment that is humane, considerate and in the best interest of the child. Now, let us try to understand non-institutional services in brief. One of the core principles of juvenile justice system is that institutionalization must be the last resort for children. This says that all efforts should be made to keep a child away from an institution. Various researches and studies across the world have proved that there are negative impact when children are admitted, especially in long-term residential care. Non-institutional options such as adoption, foster care, sponsorship care, aftercare and other community-based options are more favorable for the child. It prevents unnecessary institutionalization of the child. The Juvenile Justice Act provides support to the children through following modes of non-institutional care: sponsorship, foster care, adoption and aftercare. Now, let us see what do we mean by sponsorship. Sponsorship is a conditional financial support provided to children rescued from difficult circumstances. Which difficult circumstances we are talking about? Like the child involved in child labor, or he is a victim of sexual abuse, or he is a victim of trafficking, and for such children sponsorship is also provided. And it is also provided to children of families living in extreme deprivation or exploitation in order to allow the child to stay with his or her family and avoid further exploitation. So, to avoid unnecessary institutionalization, a support system for family is also provided so that they can maintain their child in the family care only and not to admit him in any institutionalization if the financial condition of the family is very poor. The sponsorship support shall be provided for the purpose of promoting community-based care and rehabilitation. A family will receive sponsorship in order for a child to remain in the family and continue his or her education instead of institutionalization. So, a family will receive a sponsorship care to prevent them from sending their child to an institution, and they have to give their child his right to education and admit him to the school. Then only the sponsorship scheme will be provided. This is an endeavor of the government to keep children from becoming vulnerable, from escaping and from being forced into child marriage, from being forced into child labor and so on. So, sponsorship scheme is an effort of a government to reduce the vulnerabilities of a child because of the financial constraints. With sponsorship scheme, children in institutions can also be reintegrated with their family. If the CCI can identify that there are some children who are staying in those institutions because of the financial constraint, they can forward the case to the Child Welfare Committee and can get the order of placing the child back into the family with the sponsorship help. The financial provision under sponsorship include rupees 4,000 per child per month for maximum of 2 children per family, and except in rare circumstances, the duration of sponsorship is a maximum 3 years or up to 18 years of the child, whichever comes first. The Sponsorship and Foster Care Approval Committee, chaired by the District Child Protection Officer, determines the period of the sponsorship. So, for how long the sponsorship is to be provided is to be determined by the Sponsorship Foster Care Approval Committee. Now, let us try to understand sponsorship in detail. Financial support may be extended to the vulnerable children living with their families, extended families, biological relatives for supporting their education, nutrition and health needs. Here children, you have to pay attention that sponsorship is for education, nutrition and health needs, and this amount is also provided to families, extended families and biological relatives only for the support of the child. Section 2 subclause 58 of the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act defines sponsorship as the provision of supplementary support, financial or otherwise, to the families to meet the medical, educational and developmental needs of the child. Now, let us see what the section 45 of the JJ Act says. The state government shall make rules for the purpose of undertaking various programs of sponsorship of children, such as individual to individual sponsorship, group sponsorship or community sponsorship. So, it is the duty of the central government to make rules and ensure that the sponsorship scheme is on the ground. Second, the criteria for sponsorship shall include. So, what is the criteria when the sponsorship can be given to the family? Where mother is a widow or a divorced or a abandoned by the family, where children are orphan and are living with the extended family, maybe with the parental uncles, parental aunt and their own parents are dead, where parents are victim of a life threatening disease, where parents are incapacitated due to accident and unable to take care of children both financially and physically. The duration of sponsorship shall be such as may be prescribed. The sponsorship program may provide supplementary support to families, to children home, to special homes to meet medical, nutritional, educational and other needs of the children with a view to improve their quality of life. So, sponsorship can be provided to children and also to the child care institution to improve the standard of living for the children lodged in those child care institutions. Under sponsorship program, the Mission Vatsalya scheme supplements the biological families or extended families of children in need of care and protection for adequate care of the child. So, the fund which we are talking about in sponsorship is issued by the Mission Vatsalya scheme, and it is the duty of the Mission Vatsalya scheme to supplement the families to prevent the institutionalization of the child. It is a conditional assistance to ensure that children get the opportunity to stay and grow within their social and cultural milieu in the community without displacement. So, here through sponsorship also an effort is made that the child stays within the family and is not disturbed because of the economic reasons. Rule 24 of the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Model Rules provides that state government to prepare programs for covering children under sponsorship. Further, the Ministry of Women and Child Development is implementing Mission Vatsalya scheme for care, protection, rehabilitation and reintegration of children in difficult circumstances. Now, what kind of sponsorships are mentioned in the Juvenile Justice Act? Sponsorship will be of two types. First, government aided sponsorship and private aided sponsorship. So, students, let us try to understand our first type of sponsorship, that is government aided sponsorship, and it is further divided into two categories: preventive sponsorship and the rehabilitative sponsorship. Preventive sponsorship, it is given to the vulnerable families. Sponsorship support will be provided to a vulnerable family to enable a child to continue to remain in the biological family, including extended family and blood relatives, and continue his or her education. So, this is a preventive sponsorship. So, to ensure that any family, may be biological or guardians or relatives, do not abandon the child because of the economic constraint, and that they keep them in the family to avoid the child being put into an institution. The District Child Protection Unit, with the help of its social workers, outreach workers, volunteers as well as the urban ward committee, Gram Panchayat shall identify vulnerable families or children for sponsorship support. So, in it a duty has been cast on the officials of the DCPU to keep a track of vulnerable families, to ensure that if there is any family where the children are vulnerable, they should identify it and try to bring them in the sponsorship cover. Rehabilitative sponsorship for children staying in child care institutions. Children within institutions can also be restored to families with a sponsorship assistance. On the basis of the individual care plan, an institution shall approach to the Child Welfare Committee or the Juvenile Justice Board to recommend a suitable case to DCPU for rehabilitation through a sponsorship fund. So, the officer in charge of the child care institutions can also identify that a child is placed in an institution because of the economic reasons, and if they are able to identify any such child, they should report the information of this child to the Child Welfare Committee, who will take the action in the matter as appropriate. And such rehabilitation may accord priority to the immediate family, extended family, family known to the child, neighborhood, community, and then to the unrelated and unknown foster families respectively. So, for the sponsorship purposes, a preference has been given. First, if a child is restoring to the or going back to the immediate family, family known to the child, or neighborhood, community, and then to the unrelated foster families. Cases of sponsorship will be reviewed by child welfare committees and JJBs before recommending to the District Child Protection Unit for sanction of sponsorship fund. So, CWCs and JJBs also make an inquiry regarding the need of the sponsorship money with the family of the child and accordingly recommend that the case is genuine and forward it to the District Child Protection Unit. Now, let us see the private aided sponsorship. Under private aided sponsorship, interested sponsors who could be individuals, who could be an institution, who could be a company, a bank, a industrial unit, a trust, etc., can provide assistance for the following purposes. Private aided sponsorship can be given for individual sponsorship like assistance in any kind and through financial support to one or two children of an institution or a family. A private aided interested sponsor can sponsor one or two child of a family or one or two child from any child care institution which is registered with the government. Group sponsorship, private aided sponsorship is also for a group, and that group is not to be more than the 8 children, and that 8 children could be from one family or for more family, or they can be from one child care institution. Private aided sponsorship can also be availed for community sponsorship. Assistance in any kind through the financial support to more than 8 children of one or more families of the community. If sponsorship is provided from a private interested sponsor to more than 8 children, then it will be termed as community sponsorship. Sponsorship of child care institutions. Assistance in any kind through financial support may be provided to child care institutions itself for the purposes of strengthening of infrastructure facilities, improvement of service quality, to extend skill development and vocational training opportunities, extend support facilities and training coaching classes, medical assistance and facilities, support for library and computer lab, etc. So, a private aided sponsorship can also be given to a child care institution as a whole for their betterment of the infrastructure, like better developing labs, sport facilities, library, training, coaching classes, medical assistance. For these purposes, individual sponsorship can be provided to the child care institution. Now, let us see the criteria for sponsorship. Where mother is a widow or divorced or abandoned by a family, child of a lady who is a widow, divorced, or who has no one to call a family. Where children are orphan and are living with the extended family. Now, the parents of the children are dead and they are staying with their extended family, could be grandparents, could be paternal uncle, could be paternal aunt, maternal uncle. These children are also eligible for sponsorship. Where parents are victim of a life threatening disease, children born to the parents who are HIV positive, these children can also are entitled to avail the sponsorship scheme. Where parents are incapacitated due to accident and unable to take care of children both financially and physically. Here maybe parents are alive, but they are incapacitated due to some accident or otherwise and are not in a position to take care of the child, and for the basic requirement education, health, such child is also entitled for the sponsorship scheme. And children in need of care and protection as per the JJ Act, namely children who are defined as children in need of care and protection, like child labour victims, like HIV AIDS affected child, trafficked child, victim of child marriage, child labour, child beggars, or can also avail the benefits of the child sponsorship scheme. Children covered under the PM Cares for the Children scheme. This has been recently added for those children whose parents expired due to the COVID. Such children are also covered under sponsorship scheme of the government. Economic criteria for preventive sponsorship. For preventive sponsorship, children in conditions of extreme deprivation based on the proxy parameters of residential locality, social deprivation and occupation shall be selected whose family income does not exceed rupees 72,000 per annum for rural areas and rupees 96,000 per annum for others. Now, let us see the time period for sponsorship. The sponsorship can be extended up to 18 years of age based on the reasons to be recorded in writing by Juvenile Justice Board, Child Welfare Committee or the Children Court. The sponsorship program may provide supplementary support to families, to children homes and to special homes to meet medical, nutritional, educational and other needs of the children, with a view to improving their quality of life and also to empower these families financially and otherwise to take care of the child satisfactorily. The Sponsorship and Foster Care Approval Committee may review all sponsorship cases from time to time. So, the review is also mandatory. Procedure for sanction and release of funds under the sponsorship program. Now, let us try to understand how funds are released for the children. The request for sponsorship support for a child in institutional care can be uploaded on the Mission Vatsalya portal by the DCPU or child's family. The DCPU shall organize the meeting of
FCAC,
Sponsorship Foster Care Approval Committee in the first week of every quarter as per need to consider the requests received. So, how many requests are received? This will be taken note of by the DCPU and the DCPU will arrange a meeting of SFCAC to consider these cases. The orphan, abandoned or surrendered children shall be given preference in consideration in case they are not legally free for adoption and not adopted in 6 months. Those children who are not legally free for adoption and who in spite of being declared free for adoption were not adopted in the period of 6 months, these children will be given preference for sponsorship care program. The committee will recommend eligible children to DM through DCPU. The DM shall give approval based on the recommendations of the Child Welfare Committee or refers the cases for review. The Child Welfare Committee can also identify children and give recommendations to the district magistrate, and the district magistrate can approve the recommendations of the committee and in sometimes can reject the cases and can ask committee to review the case again. The committee may review and respond to the observations made by the DM. DM may accept or reject other recommendations. So, DM after the pursual or inquiry of each case either can reject or either can approve the recommendation. The district child protection officer shall open an account in the scheduled bank post office in the name of the child to be operated by the child's guardian, preferably by the mother. So, for the grant of sponsorship scheme, the account of the child is opened by the district child protection officer, preferably through the mother or other guardian. The DCPO shall also request State Child Protection Society for budgetary allocation for non-institutional care with proper justification. The demand for the grant shall be made to the State Child Protection Society through the District Child Protection Officer. The allocation shall be credited into the single nodal account opened for the mission at the district level. District magistrate shall be the competent authority for sanctioning the release of amount from mission account to the children's account. Only after the approval of the district magistrate, the amount from the mission's account will be transferred to the children's account. Once sanctioned, the amount shall be credited monthly in the child's account. After opening of the account, the amount will be automatically credited for the next month. DCPU may facilitate child's health annual checkups from government, hospital, district medical officer, civil surgeon of the district and place the same along with the home and the social inquiry report from a social worker or a outreach worker of the DCPU before the sponsorship and the foster care approval committee for review and extension of the sponsorship assistance. So, this review from the district child protection unit is mandatory. They have to get the medical checkup of the child who is receiving the sponsorship assistance from the medical officer, civil surgeon, and they have to put the report before the sponsorship foster care approval committee to review that the money given to the child is spent upon him. The duration of the sponsorship support shall be decided on a case to case basis by the sponsorship and the foster care approval committee. So, there is no hard and fast rule, case to case basis will decide for how long the sponsorship will be provided to the child. The supervision of children and families shall be undertaken by the DCPU and shall include quarterly home and the school visits. As I explained earlier, DCPU will quarterly visit the school and the home of the child who is receiving the sponsorship in order to ensure that the money is spent on good use. If at any point time the child has to be institutionalized, the sponsorship assistance shall be discontinued. For any reasons, the child who was staying with the family and was receiving the sponsorship assistance, for any reason if the child is placed back in the institution, then the sponsorship assistance will dissolve or discontinue. Sponsorship assistance will be reviewed and suspended if the school going child is found to be irregular for more than 30 days in school attendance except in case of children with special needs. The child who are receiving sponsorship scheme, if found irregular in school attendance, the sponsorship will be discontinued. Here an exception is created if the child who is receiving sponsorship is a specially abled child, then the attendance of the school is not mandatory. Now, let us understand The second kind of non-institutional services, foster care, which is covered under section 44 of the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act. The children in need of care and protection may be placed in foster care, including group foster care, for their care and protection through orders of the committee after following the procedure as may be prescribed in this regard. In a family which does not include the child's biological or adoptive parents, or in an unrelated family recognized as suitable for the purpose by the state government for a short or extended period of time. So, children in foster care, the child is placed with a family which does not include the child's biological family, or adopted parents, and here the child is given to an unrelated family and for a period which can be short or can be extended. The selection of the foster family shall be based on family's ability, intent, capacity and prior experience of taking care of children. So, while applying for the foster care, the DCPU will certify that the family has a good intent and they have ability and they have prior experience of taking care of children. All efforts shall be made to keep siblings together in foster families unless it is in their best interest not to be kept together. So, if there are two siblings, they should be placed in a foster care together, unless if committee or the board has an opinion that it is not in the best interest of these children to stay together. The state government, after taking into account the number of children, shall provide monthly funding for such foster care through district child protection unit after following the procedure as may be prescribed for inspection to ensure well-being of the children. In cases where children have been placed in foster care for the reason that their parents have been found to be unfit or incapacitated by the committee, the child's parents may visit the child in the foster family at regular intervals unless the committee feels that such visits are not in the best interest of the child for reasons to be recorded therefore, and eventually the child may return to the parents' homes once the parents are determined by the committee to be fit to take care of the child. So, here the biological parents have been given right. In some cases, the children are referred for the foster care since the parents are not well or they are not in a good condition, and in that case if committee finds it appropriate, they can give visitation rights to the biological parents as a time prescribed. And in case if the committee is of opinion that it is not in the best interest of the child to be visited by his biological parents, they can give an explanatory order for it. The foster family shall be responsible for providing education, health and nutrition to the child and shall ensure that overall well-being of the child in such manner as may be prescribed. So, it is the duty of the foster family not to keep a child in their home as servant or a slave. They have to ensure that the all rights of the child are restored and he is enrolled for education and better health facilities and good nutrition is provided for the overall well-being of the child by that family to the child. He should not be treated as a servant at home. The state government may make rules for the purposes of defining the procedure. The inspection of foster families shall be conducted every month by the committee in the form as may be prescribed to check the well-being of the child, and whenever a foster family is found lacking in taking care of the child shall be removed from that foster family and shifted to another foster family as the committee may deem fit. Now, the inspection of the foster families is to be done by the committee itself, and if they feel that the family is not taking care of the child appropriately, they can shift the child with another foster care family or in child care institution as they deem fit. No child regarded as adopted by the committee shall be given for long term foster care. So, adoption is the basic principle here, and no child who can be given for adoption shall be placed in foster care by the committee. Procedure for foster care. Under section 44 of Juvenile Justice Act 2015 and rules, a procedure for foster care is explained. While placing a child in foster care, preference shall be given to those families that share similar cultural, tribal and or community connection. First preference shall be given to the extended family child, which does not include child biological or adoptive parents. First preference shall be given to the extended family of the child, but it does not include child's biological or adoptive parents. Second preference shall be given to unrelated family known to the child. Third preference shall be given to an unrelated foster family, and fourth preference shall be given to the group foster care. Children in the age group of 0 to 6 years who are being considered by the committee to be declared as legally free for adoption, and those who have been declared legally free for adoption shall not, as far as possible, be considered for placement in foster care. So, it is self-explanatory that children between 0 to 6 years and who have been declared legally free for adoption shall not be placed in foster care. Children in the age group of 0 to 6 years shall be provided a permanent family through adoption as per adoption regulations. The situations under which foster care can be given will rest on the CWCs based on their assessments of the individual case presented before them. The CWC will decide whether the child will be placed in foster care or not. Duration of foster care. Foster care is for short term period and it can be for extended period also. The duration, whether short or long, will also be based on the assessment of the compatibility of the child with foster care parents. The period of placement can be periodically extended by the committee till the child attains 18 years of age. So, a child can be placed in foster care till he attains the 18 years of age, and it can be for short term and it can be for extended period, and it also depends upon the comfort level of the child and his compatibility with the foster care parents, which has to be checked by the committee. Children eligible for foster care. Children in the age group of 6 to 18 years who have been staying in child care institution for over 2 years. If a child has been staying in a child care institution for more than 2 years and he is in the age bracket of 6 to 18 years and have not been declared legally free for adoption, may be placed in foster care based on the individual care plan developed in the institution. The child who has not been declared as legally free for adoption but has been staying in a child care institution from last 2 years can be placed in a foster care. Children whose parents are terminally ill and have submitted a request to the committee or the district child protection unit for taking care of their child as they are unable to take care of the child. Such children may be preferably placed in foster care. A child whose parents are terminally ill and cannot take or support him and have surrendered their child before the CWC or DCPU, but only for the purposes of institutionalization, not for the purposes of adoption. Such children can also be referred for the foster care. Children in need of care and protection as per the Juvenile Justice Act, namely children without home, victim of any natural calamity, child labour, victim of child marriage, trafficked child. Here we are generally aware of the cases of refugee children who cross borders unknowingly and are need of institutional care. The JJ Act says that the institution is the last resort, and such children who are victim of traffic or who unintentionally cross the border can be also referred for foster care till the period they are staying in the district and their repatriation is not happened. The district child protection unit, while selecting foster families, shall consider the following things. First, both the spouses must be Indian citizens. The district child protection unit, while selecting foster care families, must pay attention that both the spouses must be Indian citizens. Both the spouses must be willing to foster the same child. Both the spouses must be above the age of 35 years and must be in a good physical, emotional and mental health. Ordinarily, the foster families should have an income with which they are able to meet the needs of the child. So, foster families should be able to take care of the child on their own. Medical reports of all the members of the foster family residing in the premises should be obtained, including HIV report, tuberculosis report, hepatitis report, to determine that they are medically fit. The foster families should have adequate space and basic facilities. Criteria for selection of foster family. The district child protection unit shall identify families who are willing to take children in foster care along with their preference of the child. For this purpose, the DCPU shall place advertisement in local newspapers periodically calling for the applications for family foster care. The district child protection unit shall shortlist the applicants based on the criteria and conduct interviews with the foster families, which will help in assessment of the prospective foster family. So, after identification, the DCPU will call these families for an interview. The district child protection unit will also verify 2 references from individuals of good standing from the community they are provided for foster families. So, background check is also mandatory and the DCPU will take referral of 2 individuals of good standing from the community of prospective foster parents. The district child protection unit, while making an assessment of the prospective foster family, shall thoroughly check their economic status to ensure that they are able to meet the basic needs of the child and are not dependent on the foster care maintenance payment. However, if it is assessed that all other criteria being satisfied and only financial support is required and in the absence of alternatives, the case shall be recommended to committee constituted for the purpose. The DCPU shall ensure that the foster parents are not interested in the money consideration. District Child Protection Unit shall maintain a roster panel of willing prospective foster parents every year, which shall be forwarded to the Child Welfare Committee for placement of children in foster care. So, the roster of the willing foster parents will be maintained by the District Child Protection Unit and they will hand it over to the Child Welfare Committee. The District Child Protection Unit shall initiate preparation of the child for placement in foster care and initiate the matching process for foster parents and foster child and prepare a report for the same. These reports are to be filled out parallel by the DCPU during the matching process and submitted with a written covering letter for the match to the CWC. So, before placing a child in the family of foster care parents, matching process will be initiated by the DCPU to ensure that the family is able to gel well with each other. Procedure for sanction and release of funds under the foster care program. The couples and families desirous of fostering a child may apply to DCPU in the prescribed format. The DCPU may commission a home study report through a social worker and a background verification by the police. Economic and educational background of the family may also be taken into consideration. The families may be counselled to explain the responsibilities of fostering a child. caregiver family may seek financial support in case their annual income is less than rupees 8 lakhs. In case financial support is to be provided, process similar to providing sponsorship shall be followed. Children who are unable to get adopted or rehabilitated will be considered for foster care. DCPO shall organize the introductory meeting between the child and the prospective foster parents. The foster care arrangements have to be approved by the district magistrate. The district child protection unit may facilitate child health annual checkup to ensure that the review of the child and to ensure that the money given to the foster parents are being sent for good use. The supervision of the children and families shall be undertaken by the DCPU and shall include quarterly home and school visits. Now, this is the composition of the sponsorship and the foster care approval committee. The district magistrate here is the chairperson. Chairperson members of the child welfare committees are the members. District child protection officer is the member secretary. Roles and responsibilities of the sponsorship and foster care approval committee. Every district will have one sponsorship and foster care approval committee. The desiring cases will then be referred to the child welfare committee for the final order for the sponsorship, foster care, and the final order after the approval of the committee will be issued by the child welfare committee. A sponsorship and foster care approval committee will be responsible in each district to sanction sponsorship and foster care on receipt of final order from CWC. An annual review will be conducted for each child under sponsorship foster care by the SFCAC committee to determine that the child is taken care of. A monthly grant of rupees 4,000 per child shall be provided for sponsorship or a foster care or for aftercare. Now, let us understand our third method of non-institutional care, that is aftercare. The Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act 2015 provides for aftercare of children. Any child living in a child care institution on completion of 18 years of age may be provided with financial support in order to facilitate child's reintegration into the mainstream of the society in the manner as may be prescribed. What are the criteria for receiving aftercare? Aftercare scheme is for all young persons who have turned 18 and who have been cared and protected in any formal or informal alternative care as a child, and such care being either for child in need of care and protection as well as child in conflict with the law, and he had to leave them upon attaining 18 years of age, but the same child is in further need of close support, shall be provided with the close and continuing long term aftercare services and facilities. Duration of aftercare. Aftercare support shall be provided to young persons after completion of 18 years onwards for a maximum of 3 years, that is till 21 years, and in certain cases it can be extended till 23 years of age. Financial support of rupees 4,000 per month per child shall be provided to child care institution organizations or to the individual in aftercare plan for meeting the basic needs including food, clothing, health, care and shelter. The main focus of aftercare shall be help young persons to gain skills for increasing their employability and enable them to adapt to a life in the society. So, aftercare is provided for the young persons for gaining skills. The state government may provide additional financial support to such young persons in the form of higher education, skill development, sports, youth affairs, social justice, tribal development, Department of Financial Services, Department of Industries, etc. The state government may link the child with any of these departments. Duration of aftercare. After completion of 18 years, and it is rupees 4,000 per month, and it is maximum for 3 years, may be extended for 23 years. Provision of aftercare is found in the UNCRC, United Nations guidelines, alternative guidelines, and in the Indian Constitution. Foster care is a situation in which a child is placed with unrelated family members for a short period of time. A child should be put with the child's extended family who are familiar with the child, but if these choices are not accessible or willing to care of the child, foster care may be initiated. Preference will be given to families with similar ethnic or community when placing a child in foster care. So, the last non-institutional services, adoption, and this chapter we will take in our another class. This adoption is also defined in the Juvenile Justice Act in a separate chapter. So, students, we will study adoption in detail in our next class. Now, let us try to understand the significance of non-institutional services. The United Nations Guidelines on Alternative Care 2010, the JJ Act and other policy documents affirm the need for non-institutional care and have provided directions and guidelines towards operationalization of such service intervention. Globally, research have shown that institution care can be detrimental to child's overall growth and progress. So, staying in an institution is never advisable for the child. Often children in institutions grow up with other unrelated children and staff, experience a feeling of isolation and seclusion from mainstream society. It has been also found that the institutions having large number of children, inadequate infrastructure or lack of trained staff often become sites for neglect, abuse and exploitation of the child. Such children grow up in an impersonal care and lack of positive relationship and bonding with adult caregivers. In non-institutional or alternative care approach, children have the opportunity to grow up in a family or a family-like environment. Their unique needs are better met. They grow up with the sense of belonging, identity and positive self-image and confidence. They are better able to develop themselves as happy and constructive adults. This applies both to the child in need of care and protection and child in conflict with the law. Sponsorship and aftercare especially are significant options for children in conflict with the law. There are several children in conflict with the law who may not have their family or family support. For such children, sponsorship, aftercare are valuable options for rehabilitation and social reintegration. So, students, with this we wind up our lecture for today. We have understood the 4 important non-institutional services like sponsorship, foster care, aftercare and adoption. And with this, we close our chapter for today. Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome to this piece of literary snippet. We usually know William Shakespeare as the most revered figure in the history of English literature. But we often tend to forget that he has also been one of the most hated figures in literature. And here I am not talking only about those boys and girls who have to memorize long sections from Macbeth or King Lear or Julius Caesar before they can go and sit for their school or college exams. But I am also talking about people who are themselves quite famous authors. Tolstoy, for instance, considered the writings of Shakespeare to be, and I quote, crude, immoral, vulgar and senseless. George Bernard Shaw absolutely loathed Shakespeare, as he did Homer. But perhaps no other criticism about Shakespeare is more damaging than the one which says that Shakespeare is a marvelous storyteller, provided someone has told him the story earlier. Now, this piece of criticism is particularly damaging because it is true. None of Shakespeare's plays contain any original story whatsoever. They are all written using pre-existing materials, pre-existing stories. Now, does that diminish the stature of Shakespeare as a dramatist? Well, I'll leave that for you to decide. See you in the next episode of Literary Snippets.